1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 16 at max. Okay. Similarly, some cookies by the male of this and so on. Okay. So, so around maximum of up to these main number of cookies are allowed. That is like a 20 cookies by individual server. Okay, so not more than 20 cookies by individual server. So that's a very simple example you can do at your end. Like you goes on adding cookies to the previous example what I stated you, like with the response object response dot add cookie is a method to add the cookies. So here if you see, right, so if you see the example in the projects like cookies, so just test how many cookies you can add. So here I added 2 cookies, last and my cookie. Similarly goes on adding and check how much maximum the limit the browser can accept. Okay, so make an array of your names and try to add all those names into a cookies. Okay. Right, so coming back to sessions, so session object will be alive for a user until and unless he closes the browser or the session expire. Session expire in the sense I can specify a timeout for this. Okay, timeout in the sense after some 1 minute. Okay, delete the session object if I write. Okay, so this referred to as an timeout. Okay, because this is a way that we go with a banking domain, and if a user is not active on my web page for a certain time, then I specify a timeout for that. Okay, then even if he's not continuously interacting with my website, then I will make a note of that, and I can simply state that what I can state that he is no more into the web page. Then I can delete this session. That is the reason if I am inactive for a certain time, then it will automatically log out from that website. So how does it possible? By it will delete the session IDs of that user. Once the session IDs are getting deleted, if I make a request again, because as the user does not have a cookie corresponding to the session ID, then the server cannot able to recall that he is already a user. So hence the reason it again send back me that please log in again. This you also see in some online examination portals. They'll continuously monitor you. Okay, so they will monitor you for you should not have to open other websites. Okay, if you open it, if you move from one tab to another tab, okay, then also this will be getting recorded. How does it record? Means whatever the activity you are doing here, like any action you're performing on the web page, like if you're right clicking, okay, that will also be get disabled. If you are inactive for 1 minute, okay, then the session will be log out. Okay, then some online examination portal are monitoring you, like they are putting up a camera here. Okay, and they are sensing that whether a live person is there before the camera or not. Okay, that specify the movements of those. So all this comes as a part of a services here. Okay, these are all the services corresponding to a server. Okay, so that services is like an API again. Okay, so these APIs, like to monitor the user, there will be one API which continuously monitoring the images. Okay, all the images are getting captured and being sent to this. Okay, then there the algorithm written behind this which accepts the images, and it make a decision whether a user is a live user or you are just placing a photo of that particular user is. Means you can put up a photo which is not a live, and you can do the remaining thing behind the screen. So that what you are doing in online exams nowadays, is it? So those are all the mechanisms, like how the APIs to work at this server end. So we can create such type of APIs and we can call those APIs. So the concern here is like how to create an session object now. So session object belongs to which class? Session objects belongs to which class? Which class?
Java x.servlet.http session class.
session class with the object is created. Now, if you observe carefully, there is a directive, page directive. In the page directive, there was one attribute. What was that attribute is? Session was an attribute which takes two values. One is true or false. Okay. If I specify false, then that corresponding JSP page will not allow to create a session. Okay. So that is the way that you can off sessions for a page. Okay. But by default, this value will be true. The default value for session is true. So the internally the JSP engine will look after of creating of an JSP engine will look after of creating of a session which is called as a JSP session ID or J session ID, which we generally call it as an J session ID will be created. It will have an ID for individual user. Okay. So if I put it off, then no more you can create an sessions or you can store in sessions. Okay. So we do have certain methods. So what are those methods? Like get sessions. Okay. So get sessions will get the sessions from individual HTTP request. Okay. From a request object, the sessions will be there. So we'll write a small code that whatever we wrote earlier will with the examination project like that we'll create an session tracking with the help of session object. Okay. So now is it visible?
No, sir. Can you please zoom it, sir?
Yeah. Okay. So same again, I'm setting a current value, and now I try to store this current value inside an session. So we're checking whether what button the user has clicked, whether the next button or previous button, and accordingly we'll store that session object. So this is just to check whether what the user clicked, either he clicked last or previous. So we are trying to get the attribute from a current session. Okay. So if we do have a current session, then the session object, the session string value will be not null. Okay, then it will go inside. Else, we're going to do at very beginning time. We'll create a session dot set attribute. So the set attribute is a method to set the corresponding name and value parameter to the sessions. Okay, so what I told you that we can send name value parameters. So here, as it is getting stored as it is getting stored at the server end, now we can able to store either text value or numbers or any kind of object into the sessions. Okay, so session is like a storage area. So this session object actually try to operate onto that particular session area. Okay, means it is an object now. In that object you can try to add a name value pair, like last equal to I am assigning like 0. Okay, so which I am trying to do it here at very first time. Set attribute of, it's a name value pair again. Okay, string dot value of, now out dot print println, I'm trying to print the current value attri ut attribute. Okay, now here sorry, I need to maximize this. So set attribute is a method to set the values. Okay, so actually we can store and retrieve key value pair with the help of an set attribute, and we can get the attributes with the help of get attribute method. So there are only two simple methods. One is to set the attributes and one is to get the attribute. So as we are getting an attribute in terms of a string, okay, so this returns as a string. That is the reason that the last is in the string. That's we are converting that last to an integer. Okay. At very beginning time, what will happen when I make a request to the server? Initially it will check int value, so it is current equal to 0, and it try to fetch the get attribute. So basically there will not be any name value pair corresponding to the session. Okay, so it will, the last value will be null. Okay, so if it is not null, we have to do this. Okay, if it is null, it will get out of this and it will try to add last, okay, with the string dot value of current. For the value of current is 0. So at beginning state it will display me only the current. So I will display it here simple like question number, okay, plus. So here we'll use the same form that what we used earlier. I think this is there already, so I copy paste this. So within cookies also I created this like a form which is a similar form. So I'll come back to the session object. Okay, I'll try to paste it here. Okay, which have a submit button and the name of this is button. So I want to check whether he is clicking on previous or next, and I am trying to compare that whether if you click on the next, then it is to increment it or whether it has to decrement it. So what happened now? For the next time, again if I press some button like previous, then this will not be null no more. Okay, and it get the parameter whether what button has clicked. So I will check if parameter of button is not null, then it will go inside and it will give us the value of that. Okay, so the last value will be fetching from the previous session, means from the current session it will fetch it. So the last value will be 0, so 0 will be fetched and it will be displayed. So again it set attributes in the sense it will override. Okay, so what will happen? The set attribute method try to set the name with the corresponding value. So earlier the value was 0, so it was there. Now again the value of last is replaced by 1 now. Okay, so we'll run this simple file. Run the file. So I will tell you the advantage of session is now session because the values are getting stored at the server end, so you can't modify the values now. So as we had done earlier, like in the hidden form fields, you are changing the question number. Okay, Now in URL rewriting also we are changing the number here. In cookies also there is a process that you can modify the cookie. So hence the data will be get modified if it is sensitive data. Okay, until unless the values or data is not sensitive data like your passwords or the details corresponding to the user, okay, which have some valuable information, that type of data should not be sent as a part of cookie or URL rewriting or other way. Okay. But if it has some random numbers or something like that, that what we seen in the previous class, like Google is sending up some random numbers and so on, that things are fine, because if you modify that also nothing will change, because nothing is going to reflect. Okay. So if I click on previous, then it goes on. Okay, so previous goes to -1 and so on. Why? Because I told you previously the problem is because just we are checking only whether which button has clicked now, and accordingly we are doing subtraction out of that. Now if you observe here, session dot get attribute actually tries to get a object. Okay, this is trying to get an object for me, and I am typecasting that object to string. Okay, it means that your sessions are capable of handling any type of data, whereas when you compare with your cookies, cookies are only responsible to store numbers or string data. Okay, so whereas your sessions can able to save any kind of data. Okay, so you can store a object and you can retrieve that object also. Like I can create a class, I can create an object to that corresponding class. Like I can create an user class called an user, and I will store all the details corresponding to this user inside of this object. Then I will create user equal to new, or user1 equal to new user. Okay, so this user1 will become an object. Now I can try adding this object to the session. So how does it possible? I can simply write session dot which method, set attribute. Okay, so here the attribute values must be string. Sorry, the name must be string. So this name is like, I will give like an user1 comma, I can provide an object here, user1. This will be interesting thing, like you can store the whole object inside of a session. Okay, and when you want to retrieve this, then when you retrieve this with the get attribute, then in the get attribute only have to provide the name of the parameter which you have set. So almost all everything here is like a name value pair. So that name value pair will be written this will be written as an object now. So I have to again typecast this. I have to typecast this to which type? To the which type?
String type.
No, because I am stating that I am storing an object here now. Okay, so when it is returning a user object, so no need to again typecast this. Simple, you can use an instance of the user class like u1. I can store that. Okay, so this I'll give an example on this, how the object can be stored and so on. So how earlier class I told you that when JSP engine create a JSession ID, which will be sent as a part of cookie to us. So who is managing this now? Say get, set attribute and all those things.
Session.
Okay, now let us try to write it here. We'll try to write one thing, like now you can understand. So this is an current output of that print ln of JSession ID. So I told you that sessions are created automatically for every user. So there might be an JSession ID corresponding to that. Okay, so what is the name of that? So I told you in the previous class that it is sending as a part of cookie. So you can observe in the cookie now. Okay, so how to observe this cookie? Just copy this and paste it here inside JSession ID and click on next and try to observe that it is using one cookie, and that cookie name is JSessionID. Means here JSessionID you can read. So how to read that? First of all, means I have to get it as a part of string JSessionID equal to, I have to typecast that to string session dot get attribute names, means it will get all the names for me. Okay, there are different methods inside of this, like you can provide a maximum timeout for this, like maximum interval of inactive interval time, max inactive time. So it will get you that maximum time interval that can be set with the this method. Okay, so which we want to expire the timeout, a return value of 0 or less indicate that the session will never timeout. So these are all the corresponding methods which are there. So I'm just stating you two methods. One is get attribute and set attribute. Okay, what is the name of this attribute now? What is the name of this attribute? So that you can observe from here, the name is JSessionID. Okay, so by default it created an JSessionID. So I'll just write it as an, to avoid ambiguity, I'll write it as an session ID. Okay, so I got the session ID now. So I try to print it here on my web page now. So as I have not created any JSession ID, we can observe that this JSession ID is created by JSP engine. So just try to refresh the page. So it is returning us null. So we have to get this value actually, J session ID. J session ID. Yeah, that is the name, is it? Okay, so let's see this. I'll let you know that how we can retrieve all the session IDs which are created and what are the all default values of a session ID is. Okay, so which we can get with the session dot, you can get with the help of session dot get attribute names, which is enumeration of a string. So simply enumeration of string actually. That belongs to enumeration type. Yeah, we will see this actually is a collection of the enumeration type. So we'll let you know in the next class that how we can fetch all the attributes which are there by default in an sessions. Okay, so here if you observe that any type of data can be stored as a part of any type of data can be stored as a part of sessions. Okay, that is a major advantage of using a session. And the another advantage is as sessions are getting stored at the server end, you can't modify it. Okay, you cannot modify the content. Okay, so this is an sessions, that how sessions are used. Okay, so now if you observe in the mechanism of session tracking here, so how sessions are sent with the help of a cookie. Okay, now feel that browser is not supporting cookies now. Okay, it means that your cookies are not stored, hence your session id in the next request can't be sent back to it. Okay, so first of all we have to check whether browsers are allowing for cookies or not. If it is not allowing for cookie, then I have to go with another mechanism in the sense. So here the mechanism is, first we create a session, it get a session id like this, and this session id will be sent as a part of cookie. And if cookie is not supported, then in the response you will not get back the cookie. At that time you can understand that in the next consecutive request you will not get an response. Okay, so we can try to understand that here the browser is not supporting any cookies, so we have to switch the alternate mechanism for this. Like we have to go either for url rewriting, okay, or we have to go for hidden form fields. These are only the two options left to us, because when cookies are not supported you can't store a session ids over there. Okay, so because in consecutive, I told in the previous class, like if you are taking a appointment from a doctor, you get a token. So you itself is not in a mood to carry the token. Okay, whether the doctor can able to identify you, no. So for that identification we do have the session ids. So there should be some mechanism to hold this session id in a consecutive request. So there is a method called as an url encode url. Okay, encode url is a method where if I write something over here, that will be encoded as a part of url. Okay, in the next request, because if you see that if you are making a request for google, okay, it is hit onto the google server, then in the url it is appending something. So how it is appending? With the help of a method called as an encode url. So can anyone guess to which object this encode url can be? Can you guess? Encode url to which inbuilt object this method can be? So either I am sending an response or I am getting a request. How? Response dot, and see this mechanism. Okay, if you try to observe that this is there inside response object. Why? Because as I told you that when a client sends a request to the server, okay, then you want to send the data as a part of url. Then how the data is sent to the client? With a response object. Okay, so this object will have certain methods like response dot. Okay, so we use some of the methods with it, like to add the cookies or to to display some data to the user. So we use this response object. So this response dot encode URL will make the URL to append with some data. Means it is sending some URL, like you hit for google.com, then along with the google.com you can observe that it is been sending some more details, some more data to us. Okay, this data is appended to the URL. So how it is possible? With encode URL method. Okay. So this is helpful when the client disable cookies. Okay, means until you want to track the user, even though the cookies are disabled, then you can go with this principle of URL redirecting. Only the thing need to be remember is no sensitive data need to be sent with this. Okay, so this completes all the 4 types of session tracking mechanism. Now I'll move to some more action tags. Do you remember what are action tags are? What are action tags?
HRF anchor tags.
What this will do? Action tags in JSP I'm talking about. In JSP you have scriptlets, then expressions, then directives, declaration, and the last one is action tags. Do recall, what does an action tag do?
Use it to reuse the existing components. Allows us to use reusability concept.
At the beginning of class I told you in detail about at very beginning of JSP I told you how many types of JSP
Use it
constructs
to
it used to.
control the flow between pages.
Yeah, it is used to control the flow between the pages with the help of like forward, yeah, include. These are action tags we have seen earlier. Okay, in this we have an action tag called as an beans. Okay, this is also one concept, so just make a note. Java beans. Okay. So what are Java beans? Actually Java beans are reusable components. Java beans are reusable. So at that time I told you I can create my own action tag and I can make some of the properties to be reused. Okay, so this can be with the help of beans now. Okay, so why we use Java beans? Again, it's an older technology. Okay, so we used to write Java beans to separate business logic from presentation. Business logic from presentation. So what does it mean? In the 3-tier architecture, I told you that this is a presentation layer. Do recall the 3-tier architecture? Okay, this is business logic. Business logic layer where we write some APIs, okay, which can operate upon the database. Okay, so this can be database or any type of persistent storage mechanism. So what do you mean persistent storage mechanism? Like it holds the data permanently. So we write the business logic to fetch the data from this particular layer, which is the bottom layer, and here it performs certain operations on the data, and the data is processed in the business logic layer, and the processed data will be represented to the presentation layer, which we call it as a front end. Okay, So we told previously that those who are perfect with all these three layers, they are referred to as what? They are referred to which type
Front-end
of developer?
developers.
Yeah,
Developer.
Front-end developers.
front-end developer only
Stack
for
developers.
front-end. I am talking
Full
about
stack
all the
developer.
three types.
Full stack developer.
Full stack developer, that's literally good. Okay, full stack developer means if I want to become a perfect developer in web, so I need to know all the technologies, including front end, the business logic creation, and the databases also. Okay, right. From tomorrow's class, we'll see that how we can write an APIs to get connect with DB and how to represent the data into the presentation layer. Okay. So now we can create a Java Beans as a reusable component which acts like an interface between a business logic, and it can separate your presentation with business logic. Okay, so what we are doing now, we are combining both together. Like here itself we are writing the logic how to data should be processed, and here itself we are writing the front end layer, that is the front end part mixed up together. Okay, but what we can do is we can create a separate Java related APIs, and I can call those APIs with the help of beans. Okay, so that makes a separability between your presentation and business logic. Okay, so generally people nowadays are following like MVC architecture for that. So earlier days we used to use this Java Beans. Okay, so just make a note of this. Actually, Java Beans technically it is a Java class only. Java class that meets certain requirements. Okay, it is a general Java class only. Okay, which meets these requirements. What are those requirements are? So when I am saying that a Java Beans, then it should satisfy two conditions. Okay, in general, unless it satisfies these two conditions, it can be a normal Java class. Okay, so when it satisfies these two conditions, I can refer to it to as Java Beans. Okay. The first one, it has a public or no argument constructor. Okay, first one is it has a public no argument constructor, so it should not have an constructor with arguments. Okay, second one, it implements java.io serializable. Have you ever heard about this serializable in Java? Serialization. Serialization in Java. Why we use serialization for objects? Have you gone with an multi-threading? Threads, multi-threads. Okay, these are all the Java basics, basically. So try to search about this, what is serializable. So here, because the object, whatever the JSP, uh, because JSP interns will create an Java servlet class, and this servlet class interns create an object. That object is shared among multiple users, user 1, user 2, user 3, and number of users like clients, which I am referring to as client 1, client 2, client 3. The same object has to be served for all the clients. Okay, at that time this comes into picture, because a multi-threading concept is here. Okay, multi-thread model is created here to serve to different clients. Okay, at that time this come into a picture of serialization. Okay, now tell me, in the next class I will ask you this question is, what is serialization and what is the importance of serialization onto an object is. Okay, third one, so it has to satisfy three conditions. I told two. It has to be a public or no argument constructor. and it implements java.io.serializable interface. Okay, then its properties are accessible using methods that are written with a standard naming convention. So there is a naming convention that need to be followed when we are writing getter and setting methods. Getter setter method should be there. Do you know getter and setter methods? Getter and setter methods in Java means if you are creating a class, if you are having certain properties for that, suppose if I am creating a class called then factorial and I want to make an private data into this, like if I don't give any access specifier, what is the default access specifier in Java? Default access specifier in Java, public or protected or public.
Default.
Default. Default is there.
Public.
Public.
Sir, public.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Who taught you
Yes,
Java?
sir.
These are the very basic things in Java, is it? If you are creating a property, then what is the default access specifier is? Either it is default or it is private or public or protected. What?
Default, sir.
Default.
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 Okay. So can I use this outside of this particular class, in the sense directly if I create an object of this, like I can create it, I can access this f1.n.
No.
Okay, so when you are going to then packages, you should know all these things, like where this attributes can be used and so on. But coming to this, like if you have a private data, then you want to access that, then the best mechanism is you need to write a get and set methods. Hopefully you know this. So here it need to have a getter and setter methods with certain restrictions, that how the getter and setter method should be. It should be preceded with a value actually. Okay, so get value and set value need to be followed. Okay, so if any class do follow all these three rules, then that class will become an which class? Which class? Java bean class. Okay, it can refer to as in Java beans in general. Okay, which satisfies all these three conditions. Okay, make a note of this. So we'll write an example, then we'll see that how the beans can be and what are the action tags available to write these beans. Okay, to make use of these things. Okay. Are you making note of these examples? Okay, before going to beans, I need to create a class. So where to create a class? In the source package, under this you can create a class, okay, which is a Java class. Okay, so I will create a normal Java class called as in beans. So what I told you, when this will be an bean now, when this will be bean,
If three conditions.
yeah, first of all it should
satisfied.
implement. It should
Java.io.
Yeah, java.io.serializable. Okay, the next thing is should not have any constructor. So I'm just writing this logic, like I am writing a getter and setter methods. So public int get followed by some name. Okay, so followed by some name, you can give any name after get, like get value, okay, or get fact. So I want to compute factorial, then I can write this like get fact. So this name should be remember now. Okay, what are the getter methods are, okay, but get should be preceded with this. Okay, so get, I will write v capital value. Okay, so I try to find out the factorial for a given n, and it will return me the factorial. Okay, so for int I equal to some 2 I less than or equal to n I plus plus, and I am doing p into equal to I. So I am just returning this, return p. It's a very simple logic to perform an factorial. Whenever I call this bean now with some value, then it should get me this thing. Okay, similarly you can think about, like after completion of databases, I will tell you how to write the APIs to access your databases. That will be in a very similar mechanism. So we need to write the beans for this. Suppose if I give a roll number, I need to find out whether he's passed in WP or not, whether he get how many marks in WP. So I can write a logic for that. Okay, I will explain you. That can be your task, no? Okay, so it should have a public method. Generally getter and setter methods will be public methods to access outside of it. So how you have created a get, after get you are given some name, the same name should be with your set also, so set value. Okay, it will take some parameter, and we'll try to set this to n equal to v. In general we are just allowing this n to be accessed only via object of beans. Okay, now how this beans class can be, so simply I will save this. Okay, I'll come back to the JSP file now. This is simple a Java class, okay, which follows all the 3 conditions now. Okay, so now so for this we can run this, but it doesn't have a main, so that's the reason the class beans neither has a main method or it has a servlet specified in a web.xml. That is the reason it can't execute now. So when you are running the application, when you are calling this beans, then an instance of that beans will be get created. Okay, that I will show you. So that's beans.jsp. I'm going to this file. Now I can access that bean now. Okay, so there are 3 action elements now. One is a use bean that that helps us to use the beans which we have created. So for example, JSP colon use beans, and it will take an object. Okay, an object name followed by a class name and the scope of it, whether it belongs to page level or request level or what level. So ID, it takes an ID attribute, refers to the name of the objects to create, and the attribute class specifies the name of the Java beans. Means if I want to create an object to the previously defined class or than beans class, like I want to create f1 as an object, then I should specify the class equal to, what is the class I have created here? Beans. Okay, so I have to provide this name. So when I use this use bean, it tried to create an object for me, okay, which is of type bean, and the name of that object is what? F1. Okay, I can give a scope of this, whether the object should be at what level. So I provide this should be at application or at a session level and so on. A object is created. So this object can be used now to call upon the getter or setter methods. So this is beans. I think the name of it is beans only, is it? Beans. So the name of the class is not bean, it is beans. So now I can, means a object is now created called as an F1. So I can use this object inside of a scriptlet now. Are you seeing this? When I press F1, so what happened? A reusable component of F1 is getting to us, and with the help of this F1, I can get the methods which are there inside of this. Okay, F1 dot, like I will give set value to like 5. Okay, then I will print it like F dot out dot print F1 dot get value. Are you able to understand? Okay, what we did, we created a reusable component now. Okay, and to this object we are calling upon the methods which are there inside of this. Okay, now what we can observe is the logic to perform the operations has written separately, and we are just calling this in the interface. Okay, means at the front end. When I run this file, actually beans F1 is equal to null. Actually the dot class file should be there for this. Actually this class should be compiled and then it should be present under the sources. Because this is expecting for an class name which should be a compiled class actually. So this with the help of a tool we are doing, but we have to compile this with let me show you. We'll go to the path of this project. And see users of this project is there, so we have to observe from where the project is getting executed. So under org Apache JSP, it is actually creating an classes for everything. If you see this, so this is an after conversion, it is creating a servlet maps for that. Beans.jsp bean map is created, which is under this, like this is after the conversion, like your all the files will get converted into a servlets. See how it is setting the value like f1 dot set to 5, and we are writing f1 dot get value of 5. So here maybe f1 is null now. Okay, that is the reason it is throwing this exception like f1 can't be null. Actually, the f1 internally it should create this new class. Okay, so which is almost like should be similar to, I will show you. This actually is equivalent to creating an this use beans is similar to like creating an object of beans f1 equal to new beans. Okay, so let me run this first. Let us check whether it will execute, because same error is throwing. This is in the default package. Okay, so what we can do is we can write our own source packages in another package. So we can create a new Java package and we can put up all those things inside of that package. Like if I use bean, so you can create multiple packages here. So I want to create a Java class. We'll see that bean should be inbuilt actually. Bean validations are there. These are for the validations of the beans. What we created the beans to validate that, we can go with this validations, bean validation or bean constants for mapping of that we called as in JSP filters. We'll see in the next class how to make use of those filters. Okay, so I'll come back to this. It's throwing an exception. Okay, that is while converting that to scriptlet, it is throwing an exception. I will check it and I will let you know. The thing is, the Java beans are reusable components we can use inside of a JSP page. Okay, so after completion of JDBC, we'll look in detail with how to connect to database for 3-tier architecture.